Welcome to Blog Talk Radio, or Frog Live Radio for May 2011. And I'm Mike Howie, and what a show we have for you today. I'm very excited because today we're going to meet a most interesting New Zealand success story. Now, we're a nation of thinkers and doers, but it gets really gratifying to hear when one of our own takes a thought, puts it into action, and the world comes calling. And in this man's own words, his idea is helping his clients transform a $100 billion market. Now, the chap we're about to meet is Jason Kerr, and he is very much a thinking and very much a doing character, and doing very, very well, I might add, in the world's capital of technology innovation, the veritable cradle where big money and big ideas meet, Palo Alto, also known as Silicon Valley in California. Now, to give you an idea of how this company is shaking things up, here's a recent recruitment ad placed by them. We're after a person with a degree in can-do attitude from the School of Taking Ownership and getting the job well done. Welcome, Jason Kerr, to Frog Live Radio.
Thanks, Mike, and good morning.
Good morning. You're calling all the way from San Francisco?
Yeah, I'm up in our Palo Alto office, which is about 40 minutes south of San Francisco. It's a little warmer down here. We don't get the fog, so it's quite a nice place to be.
So it's a long, long way from Marlborough Boys College. Would that be correct?
It's even longer away from Seddon Primary School, but there's no place like home, as you know.
Yeah, look, just the first part, just to give our listeners an idea about who you are, the first question we always ask our guests, Jason, is what's the first job you ever had, and what age were you, and what was it when you actually received your first payment for something you did?
You know, it was I was 15. You mean the first job when I wasn't at school, or the first?
First job, any time a shekel hit the palm of your hand.
Oh, that was early. We had the local milk run in a place called Seddon, so we were, as kids, our cousins and I, we were always earning money from like Seddon, standing on the back of a truck delivering milk.
So obviously, and what we want to explore is, by the sounds of it, you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur. When you left school, did you have any idea what you wanted to do in life?
No, none whatsoever. I left school the day I turned 15. I got an apprenticeship as an electrician the next day. Spent 4 years getting my electrical certificate to decide after I got it that crawling in roofs wasn't a life for me. And, went on from there.
So what did you do? So tell us, was there an aha moment that changed your life to set you on the course you are now, or just give us a bit of that early background?
Yeah, I think it was probably my parents, really. They always had this can-do attitude, and while I was an electrician, I also was in a band. I was also renting out jet skis in Picton and down the top of the Marlborough Sounds. So I always had some entrepreneurial spirit. But when I finished my electrical apprenticeship, I actually went flying as a flight attendant, if you'd believe it, for Ansett, New Zealand. I had this girlfriend at the time, and she said she was thinking about being a flight attendant. I thought, that sounds like a pretty good life. But I got in and she didn't, which kind of ended that romance. But while I was flying, I had so much time off that I started studying computers and basically got the interest to try and change the world through computing at an early age.
So what year would this have been, Jason, when you started to sort of muck around with, obviously, writing a bit of code, was it?
Yeah, I think it was 89. I joined Ansett, and I think we worked like 2 weeks and 6. It was just crazy. So I had all this time off and taught myself computer programming, and the first program I wrote was a program to help the airline managers rostering for the crew. And we ended up writing a series of modules for airlines. We ended up having about 30-odd airlines in Asia-Pacific use our software to run the whole airline business. So that was really the first approach. I haven't worked for anyone since, basically.
So you wrote a program, and just after you were staying home on your 3 days off, and it helped rostering for airlines. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it seemed pretty crazy that you'd have 10 days on and 30 days off, or whatever it was that we were doing. But yeah, over the next 3 years, I guess, we ended up writing more and more software to help airlines manage their aircraft tracking, crew rostering, aircraft disrupt scheduling. the bits of software that make you pay more money for your airfares, kinds of good software like that. We ended up having pretty much every regional airline in Australia, Pacific, Asia use that software product, and we competed with Oracle Sabre in that business. And we ended up selling that business to Accenture in, I can't remember what it was, 2005, I think it was.
And so what happened then? So obviously this is a great story because you're stumbling into a sort of an edge of recruitment, which is interesting, obviously, for our point of view. What was your next move after this great little first entrepreneurial
Yeah,
run?
that was the first thing I started on, but that was 89, 90, and then 91 we started a second company building cellular phone software, and myself and 3 other chaps built some software that became the standard for cellular text messaging globally. We sold that business to a company in America that eventually patented what you'd call text messaging today. Then we had another couple of businesses along the way, and I had the same partners pretty much throughout those. But it was the end of the airline business where Virgin Blue, actually, in Australia, one of the big airlines we had, we were sitting around one night having a couple of beers with the CEO and a couple of the guys, and said, well, we've got this problem. And he said, we get 80 kilograms of mail every day from people who want to be flight attendants. And we've got no way of managing this. They just send this unsolicited mail in, and it's very hard for us to recruit. And I said to him kind of jokingly, I could probably do something about this for you. And that really started my first foray into recruiting, which was interesting.
So they were getting 80 kilograms, did you say, of paper, of resumes?
Yeah, it was 80 kilos. It was a big burlap bag every day. This is Virgin, brand new airline. I can't remember the year, to be honest. But they were getting 80 kilos of mail of people submitting resumes to be flight attendants. So we started looking at this problem a little closer, and we had, as I say, about 30-odd airlines, and we found that they all had similar problems between pilots and cabin crew who wanted to get their information in front of them. So we thought that a good opportunity might be to allow a cabin crew to fill out one centralized resume and then submit it to each airline, or give each airline access to that central resume who they wanted to work for. And we ended up signing up lots of these airlines. It was actually basically the first social networking tool in this space. This was, I can't remember the year now, it's probably in 2001, so before Facebook, before LinkedIn. There was actually a program in Australasia in 2000 where you could complete a centralized profile and then say, I want Qantas to have it, I want Virgin to have it, I want JetBlue, Air New Zealand to have access to my profile, much like you share your information on Facebook, except what you were doing is sharing a resume. We ended up with, a couple of million people, I think, in that system. And I took that from New Zealand to Chicago on the 1st of September 2001. I landed in Chicago, and we had beta trials lined up with a couple of airlines over here, American Airlines and United, and we were going to put in this centralized one resume approach to airline recruiting. And of course, for September the 11th, 2001, we were sitting there looking at each other going, well, what do we do now? Because we had an airline recruiting solution, and obviously that was going to be hindered for some time. So we were sitting in Chicago, wondering what to do on September the 12th, and we might as well keep on this recruiting thing. It's bound to pick up, and we started building other recruiting products from there.
So so the natural calamity, which was obviously September 11th, when those planes flew into those buildings, did that kill any hope of floating this business with airlines?
Yeah, I think what it killed was it killed hope, basically, in this country, in America. It killed hope for a long time. It killed the market for investment in software. It killed innovation for a period of time. I mean, it was just a lockdown. Had that not happened and we'd been successful, who knows, it may have been a precursor to social networking. It was very centralized and sharing-based. Who knows? But it certainly killed our ability to scale that business.
So just from a personal point of view, at that point, was there any point of this, because it's interesting for people listening to someone like you, Jason, who's taken an idea from the bottom of the world and trying to sell it globally. At that point, was it tempting to just kick it all in and just come back home or do something like that? Did that ever enter your head?
It never has, and I don't know why it hasn't, but it's never really entered my head that was a success or a failure. That was just one of the things that happened on the way. And I think in the last, 10 years since we've been back in New Zealand and back up to the States and doing various things, one thing that I think I've seen come and go over and over again, especially here in Palo Alto, is that if you can't pivot, if you can't change your business, you're dead. And, we've had some players chasing us in this, where we are now in the social recruitment space, who had $40 and $50 million invested in them. And the first idea they try, they burn their $50 million, and they're out of business. If you can't pivot, especially in today's world when ideas last as long as it takes you to build them, you're not going to survive. So I know we've never kind of given up, never actually wanted to run home. I mean, New Zealand's a great place for building innovation because you're on the edge. You're sitting out on the edge. You don't have access to the resources, and you have to come up with innovative ways to do things, and it's very, very good from that aspect. But it also has a negative side in that you're not exposed to the capabilities or the needs and desires of large markets like the US. And I'll give you a classic example. We still have our R&D development shop down in Auckland, New Zealand. We have a bunch of guys and girls, a very great team down there in Parnell in the Saatchi & Saatchi building. And, sometimes developers will say, hey, we can't do this, it's too slow. But when you live in America or Europe and the internet is 15, 20 times faster than it is in New Zealand, those things aren't roadblocks. So in New Zealand, we are sometimes limited by the perception that we have because of our connectivity to the rest of the world. But I think overall it's a big advantage.
Yeah, it sounds like we spoke to a guy last week, actually, Jason, called Bill Borman, who's taken social networking to, a new height of connectivity as far as him being a blogger. He uses nothing but tweets, and I think you and I spoke to him when we first met by Skype. But he says what's keeping this country back is simply the lack of bandwidth. He can't show videos down here at conferences,
I came back to New Zealand for Christmas, I think it was last year, the year before, and I spent 3 months out on Waiheke, and it was kind of nice not to have it, but it was frustrating. You get so used to just picking up your iPhone and being able to watch streaming video. You get so used to being able to use applications that are near networking and, social sharing, and you go there and you can't use it. But I think he's right. New Zealand has all the creativity, and it has a big chokehold around its neck of getting that creativity out.
Right. Hey, so just creativity, September 12th, things don't go well. What pivoted you, to use your word, or what was the springboard that got you on the way to where you are now? If you can just give us a quick synopsis before we talk about the $100 billion industry you're grappling with at the moment.
Yeah, so on September the 12th, we basically went in the corporate direction. We said, okay, the internet and the airline business is going to be stated for some time. So we chased corporations about improving their cycle times to hire, and we went down the applicant tracking system path. And in fact, we still have an applicant tracking system in New Zealand and Australia that we sell. And I think it has about 80 clients on it. Normal old applicant tracking system that recruiters use. And we went into that business pretty deep. We then got into the government business, and we started building some technology to help unemployed people transition to new work. And it was really this technology that laid the foundation of what we're doing now. And that technology was simply saying this notion that, how do I find somebody for a job they haven't done? And it was a unique problem to underemployed, right? They've got lots of skills that they may have accumulated in jobs and being welders or whatever they're in. But there was no jobs like that in the market anymore. But the fact is, they have accumulated skills and knowledge in the past jobs they've had. How do I take those skills and knowledge and apply them to jobs that are in the market? And, of course, everything we do today is on a job title base, right? I'm looking for an accountant or whatever it is. What we did for this government project was say, if we were able to understand the skills that people accumulate throughout their career, we could then make some predictive assessment on other jobs that need those skills. And that program really started to thinking us in a new direction about how to think about people. And that's kind of led us to this position we're in now. We've got a lot of IP and a lot of money invested in understanding how do I get to the core DNA of someone in their career. And, of course, during that time, Facebook, LinkedIn, and MySpace really started to take off. And what became evident to us is that it is no longer required that you own the profile or the data. what's required is how you can analyze it and how you can present it for a particular medium, and our medium is recruitment. And how do we help recruiters find and identify talent in this way? So that's really what we've probably spent the last 9 years on, is how do we build this core architecture that helps us identify skills and talent. And when we apply that to what we're doing now, it's very simple. How do we help people on the social web enrich their social profiles so they can be more findable by recruiters for jobs? It's a pretty simple notion.
Right, so what you're talking about, let's move to the present for a second. This $100 billion market that you're helping your clients transform, just give us an overview of what you describe that market as being.
So here in the US, the average spend in recruitment outsources is about $58 billion a year. So this is recruitment advertising, internal cost, etc. So directly, these customers, these very large customers that we have 58 of the Fortune 500, they collectively are the job market. They're powering this whole ecosystem, spending this money. They have the jobs, they have the advertising budget, they have the money, and it's cycling round and round and round, and they're not building any asset from it. They're not revolutionizing the asset. Every time they spend $1, they're not keeping 70 cents of it. They're just spending the next dollar the next day. So we're trying to help them basically revolutionize that $100 billion market and to build assets that help them recruit better in the future.
So, sorry, just got to confirm, the $100 billion market is the recruitment market in the States that the top 50 companies
No, that's the market size in the US in the recruitment space.
Which brings us to findlee.com.
Find.ly, Find.ly.
Find.ly, sorry. So tell us about find.ly.com.
So finally is this notion that how do I make myself more findable for jobs? So we started out with this notion that if we could help the 850 million people who already have social profiles, right? There's 850 million people on Facebook, LinkedIn, MySpace, who already have data, they already have content, they already have profiles. So how can I help those people become more findable for jobs? How can I help them enrich those profiles so they can keep their best foot forward in the market and become more findable for jobs? That's the notion of Findly. And what we did is we started by saying to corporations, you can follow the careers of people who are interested in your brand by allowing someone to share their social profile with you. And we went to our corporations and we said to them, we've got this technology that can help a job seeker share their social profile in a way that's really useful for recruiting. It means they don't have to have a resume. It means that the information you get is always up to date as they change Facebook, LinkedIn, or MySpace. And it means that you can build an asset that grows over time. And any time you need to recruit, you can search in real time Facebook, LinkedIn, and MySpace to find the skills that you need to fill a job. And where we ended up with Findly is a very simple notion that in a single click, 850 million people can turn their social profile into the ultimate living resume, and companies can identify and find the right person to fill a job.
So just give us an example. Give us a real anecdotal example. Let's say, I think you mentioned Time Warner. Was that right? As one of your clients.
Yep.
Can you just take us through it? Because for us non-technical people, just paint a picture of what Time Warner does and what the candidate does.
Okay. So imagine that you are on Time Warner's career page. There's 1,000 jobs there or whatever. You're a job seeker. You're looking for a job at Time Warner Cable. So it says, apply to this job. You click the apply button. In the old world, you would go in and you fill out a form and you spend 40 minutes going through this process and apply for a job. So with Findly, what we do is we pop up a form and it says, before you apply, let Time Warner Cable follow your career so they can find you for other jobs. And you click OK, and it says select which network you want to use, Facebook, LinkedIn, or MySpace. You click Facebook. Findly goes through your Facebook profile, and it extracts the information that the recruiter should see about you while hiding all your social information they shouldn't see about you. And then it uses that information to help do two things. Speed up the application process and fill out your application form, and then it joins you to what we call a talent community that is always up to date so those Time Warner Cable recruiters can find you again in the future for other jobs.
Right. So is there a privacy issue, do you find? I'm saying,
no,
so you're saying to me, I'll just repeat. What you're saying is that, because I've seen you, and we'll talk about your own CV in a minute, what you're saying is we'll go and look at MySpace detail, Facebook detail, your LinkedIn detail, and actually construct a CV that sits in the cloud. Is that right?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do, we have this saying. We like to try and separate your Friday night from your Monday morning. We like to get your social content and pull out the pieces that people should see and present them in a professional way, so you don't have to become friends with recruiters, you don't have to become friends with companies or share your social life. That professional view of your social content is what we store and show in the cloud.
Right. Now, I've looked at your Findly CV, and it's very, I'll just explain it to people. It reminds me a bit of when Google first came out. It's very clean, it's very succinct, it's very easy to understand. So they've gone and grabbed your detail out of your social networks, is that correct, and constructed a CV.
Yeah, so that CV that you see of mine, all I did to get that CV is I went to Findly and I clicked on the Facebook button, finally went through my Facebook profile and pulled all that data out of my Facebook profile and said, this is a professional representation of you. One click. And every time I change Facebook in the future, if I get another job or add another skill, it automatically updates my Findly profile.
Right. So it sits out in the cloud. It's a live document. There's no data kept anywhere. And if you opt into Time Warner can follow you for the next 20 years. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what's happening with these big companies is they get millions of people literally go to their career sites, and they get a big drop off of those people who don't do the apply process. So what's happening is more and more people are saying, I'm not ready to apply, but I do want you to follow my career. We have some companies who are doing 500,000 a month, right? 500,000 people saying, hey, follow my career. You think about that from a company's point of view. If you had 500,000 resumes in a filing cabinet, right, it's impossible. If you had 500,000 resumes in a filing cabinet, in 60 days' time, they start degrading in value, right? They're worthless to you in a year's time. When you have 500,000 Findly followers, you always have the latest information, you can always see their latest profile, you can always contact them, and it's always up to date. That's
God, that's amazing. Yeah. Tell me, just getting back from, sorry, go on. Yeah, please go on.
No, I was going to say what's even more amazing is it's all happening in real time because we don't store any data. One of the things that finally in our patent is that we don't want to store data. We don't want to have a resume database. In the US here we have some things called EEO and OFCCP, Equal Opportunity Recruitment, and these government mandates about diversity. So storage of data is one of the big problems in the audit process for that. So Findly doesn't store any data. It uses the data that you have in Facebook and LinkedIn and MySpace, and it makes a professional representation of it on the cloud that is always up to date. Our job at Findly is to keep your resume up to date and only your professional side shown. So what's really cool about that whole thing is that when a recruiter searches Findly, it actually is doing real searches in real time on Facebook, MySpace, and LinkedIn from one tool, and it's aggregating those search results in real time. So if someone changed their profile this morning, you get that result. If somebody added a skill or a competency or a job, you can now find that person real time. It's very, very cool to watch.
So just a couple of questions, Jason. Do I get a chance to edit my CV before Time Warner sees it? You know, if I push the button that says I'll buy into Time Warner, collating, scraping my information in a great way from my MySpace page, my Facebook page, my LinkedIn page, my Bigo page, whatever. Do I get a chance then to say, let's finesse that?
Yeah, you can do, but what you're finessing is the information inside Facebook or the information inside LinkedIn or MySpace, whichever network you chose. So when you actually see your Findly profile and you click on the edit link, we actually open up your Facebook page right to the place where you need to add the information. Because see, what we want people to remain in the network that they like being in. Because let's face it, if I join, Mighty River Power's job site, I'm never going back there to update my profile. But if I join Mighty River's, job site using my Facebook profile, I'm going to update my Facebook profile. Mighty River Power get updated. We want people to live in the environment they want to live in, and that's for most people in Facebook. And we can talk later about the stats of what we see in terms of connections from Facebook, LinkedIn, and MySpace. But overall, we see about 65% of all people who are now saying, hey, I want you to follow my career. They're saying it by using their Facebook profile.
This is really interesting. Now, The question is there an age group? Let's say I'm a 50-year-old PR consultant in New Zealand or in the States where you're operating. Am I slow to catch on to this? Are younger Gen Y, Gen X jumping on a bit faster, and why, do you think?
Yeah, there's some great questions, and I think there's general reasons and there's specific reasons. What's really interesting, it's actually more to do with the brand than it is the person. And what I mean by that is we have 58 of the Fortune 500, ranging from heavy retail, hourly workers, right through to aerospace engineering. Overall, we see about 65% Facebook. However, a brand like perhaps Best Buy, which is maybe like a really, really big Dick Smith in New Zealand, Best Buy, they're swinging towards 14% MySpace, 70-odd% Facebook, because it's a very high hourly workforce and a very young, fresh, friendly brand. Right, very Gen Y. You have another client who's very heavy on aerospace, which would be predominantly LinkedIn. And then there's some anomalies that you just don't understand at all. Like we have some nuclear scientists who join one of our companies using their Facebook profile. And I think what's happening is that those older generation people who may have only been in LinkedIn, they're getting forced to use Facebook because their kids are on it. And what happens when they get forced into using Facebook to keep up with their kids, they start putting more and more content. And if you look at the statistics of reuse between Facebook and LinkedIn, the average LinkedIn person logs into their account and updates information once every 90 days. The average Facebook person is twice a week. So, 38% of Facebook log in every single day. The engagement rate, 98% of all Facebook users log in once a month. So you can see that people are choosing to live where they want to live. And I think tools like Findly are helping people to understand that I can have a social profile and safely make pieces of it available for other uses. And what we do is we make pieces of it available for recruiting.
Right. Look, what I'm really fascinated, before we talk about the stats and trends, I've got lots of questions. In the States, for instance, there was a case a couple of years ago where a teacher didn't get a job because she had a picture of her drunk in a pirate hat, and the school she was going to get a job for saw it. It was a big case in the New York Times, and it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and she didn't get the job. Okay?
Yep.
Now, what I want to know is, let's say you're Time Warner looking at someone, they get the name. Do you think there's much peeping behind the Finally curtain that goes on? When I mean that, I mean going off and having a look at the Facebook profile of the last instance of the final interview.
Right, I'm sure it happens now with a paper resume or with whatever, In Germany, funnily enough, they recently banned Facebook from corporations as a recruitment medium because of the bias. What Findly has done in Germany is legitimize Facebook as a source of recruiting because it separates the social content from the professional content, and it makes the professional content available without you having to be inside Facebook as a recruiter, without you having to be friends with people or see their network content. So we've actually managed to re-legitimize, Facebook as a recruitment source in Germany. And I think, to answer your question directly, you're not going to stop anyone peeking behind any curtains. You can't control it, whether they drop a resume off on your desk or you use Findly. And what we do, which is very interesting, is that LinkedIn, Facebook, and MySpace, and we also do Google and Yahoo profiles. When you look at them in each of those domains, they're different formats, they're hard to read. What we do is we standardize it all. So when you use Findly, you view information from Facebook or LinkedIn or MySpace in exactly the same format. So it becomes very easy to be your destination, your one place to source from. So I'm not sure in the future, I don't think you're ever going to control that issue. But certainly with Findly, we are able to legitimize social networking as a valid recruitment source.
This is great stuff. Now, before we get on to stats, trends, the future, let's talk a wee bit about LinkedIn versus Facebook. Facebook, to me, is young kids or younger generation. As you've said before, it's not nuclear physicists. What do you see in the future of LinkedIn? Do you see LinkedIn as losing popularity? I mean, you're in there in the trenches seeing the stats of who's using what. Just give us a bit of an overview of social networking 101 from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. So, LinkedIn's just reached 100 million people. That's a significant number of people. 45 million of those are in North America. Facebook is 650 million people on its way to 1 billion. every person, 50% of all people in America over 12 have a Facebook account. LinkedIn and Facebook are arching towards each other, right? Facebook is trying to get more professional, and LinkedIn's trying to become more social. To us at Findlay, we're an agnostic platform. We don't care who wins, right? The fact is that you like LinkedIn, I like Facebook. Some people like MySpace. You let the customer decide where they want to live, and in fact, it's good to have this fight going on between these guys. And just let's not remember, it was only 2 years ago that MySpace was bigger than everybody, right? 2 years ago, MySpace was bigger than Facebook. So who knows what's being built in some garage in Palo Alto? We said, we don't care who wins that game. Let's just let people live where they want to live. And what we will do is we'll put our effort into standardizing their information in a professional way so they can always have their foot in the market for a job.
So is your magic, let's say your golden dust, your magic drink that everyone's drinking, is that you can go and extract information on someone's professional career or make it professional from any platform?
Correct.
Google comes out with something. Go on.
Yeah, Google already have a profile, and we've written the API for Google and for Yahoo already. What they don't have is enough volume yet, and when they do, we'll probably turn those on. But yeah, you're right. A part of our patents were about how do I take disparate or different types of social media and standardize it for the purpose of recruiting. And if you think about it, what happens is if you look at your LinkedIn profile, it's very structured, very professional, has lots of different fields. Facebook doesn't have all that stuff, and MySpace has hardly any of it, right? And also, when you think about the people who participate in these things, when you fill out your LinkedIn profile, and I don't know, Mike, if you've done one, but if you fill out your LinkedIn profile, you're really thinking about every word you write, okay? You're thinking about, someone's going to look at this in a professional way. So when you're on Facebook, you're a couple of beers in on a Friday night, you're typing stuff out. And if you're using MySpace, who knows? You're probably on crack or whatever. But it's the point is that you have a different psychology of users in each of these places, and these places have different fields, different data formats. So what Findlay had to do, one of its biggest challenges was go, well, how do we standardize that? How do you standardize different information? And the answer was you have to find things that are not there. SEO, if you're familiar with SEO, the search engine optimization, the way that Google searches, is very, very good at finding things that are there, words written on a page. They can find you words written on a page anywhere and rank and rate their relevance. The work we did with the government was, how do you find things that are not there? How do you find someone for a job that they haven't done? And when you apply that logic to the social web, you go, well, how do I find information out of Facebook that's not written there? Because someone's told me their job title and they were out for 3 years. So what we've done is standardize the social web to a common taxonomy for recruitment. And we've made Facebook, MySpace, and LinkedIn be just as powerful as each other as living optimum recruitment sources. That was really the magic dust. And whether Google comes out with a platform or Yahoo or Microsoft does, it doesn't matter.
Can you just I'm a bit slow, but give us an example of this taxonomy of a real-life case study or a job? Just because it sounds like you're dealing with predictive stuff, and it's very fascinating. But could you just slow it down and just give us a really good example, if you may?
Well, I always talk too fast, Mike.
No, that's all right. I'm the same. I love this stuff.
I'll give you the exact thing what happens. When we look at, say, a Facebook profile, right, and we see that you've said you're an accountant for 3 years, and then you were at this job, and you were at that job, whatever it is. So that's called factual information, right? It's stuff you've said about yourself, and it's pretty easy. But what we do with that is we look at the job title that you've said, and we go to our taxonomy. Now, we have a taxonomy of pretty much every job. And in that taxonomy are the skills, the competencies, the knowledge, the work experience, the tools and technologies, the abilities and the cultures that are optimally required for someone to have to perform well in that job. And they're rated and ranked in the order of their competency order. So what that means is that we have the basic DNA for every job, right? So kind of technical sounding stuff, but basically for every job we know what you need to be the best performer. And we have that for hundreds of thousands of jobs. So when you say that you're an accountant, we actually know what you should have been exposed to in that job for that period of time. So what we're able to do is we get that factual information. You said you're an accountant at Ashton Whelans and Hagen and Christchurch for 3 years. we're able to take that information and build a predictive matrix of the kinds of things that you should have experienced throughout your career, the kind of tasks that you should have been exposed to, the kind of skills that you would have needed to perform those tasks. So finally it's made up of three things: factual information, the stuff that you write on your page; predictive information, the stuff that you should have been seen and exposed to, and the kind of skills that you should have accumulated throughout your career, and it's predictive, okay? And we also have a third thing called derivative information, and what this is a combination of social behaviours that we see that may lead to some recruitment outcomes, and I'll give you an example of those. So let me give you an example of how those three pieces of data work. When you search for an accountant, it looks at the factual information. It says, here's someone that says they're an accountant, right? And we have this whole job tree that says if you typed in Senior Director of Finance, it boils down to those kind of roles. So that's factual searching. That's what Google does. Type in accountant, find your page with accountant written on it. It's called SEO. Our predictive information is all about skills and competencies. So if I want to rank and rate all the people in order who would be the best accountants, I can use my predictive skill matrix and competency matrix to rank and rate the people by a predictive order. And I can also use it for a third thing, which is very, very cool. If I'm looking for someone who could be an accountant who hasn't been one, I can ask the system to find someone who hasn't been an accountant but has the most skills or work experience in their past that would lead them to be a good accountant. And that's very important for students and your vanilla workforce, coming into the workforce that don't have a lot of job experience. The third piece, that derivative stuff I talked about, tell me if I'm getting too boring here. The derivative stuff is the ability to do something very, very cool. So we're live, okay? We don't store data. We're live connected to the social web. Someone changes Facebook right now, and they say they've got a new job. We update Findly. We now rehash their skills and competencies. We can find them. What we're also doing is we're looking at the way in which they behave on the social web. So I'll give you two examples of how we use it. When you search, we have these social derivatives. So you can say, where would this person most likely be willing to relocate to? Right? So imagine having that power in your resume. I want this person to go to Auckland, right? So would they be willing to go to Auckland? So what we've done is when you join, we can look at your heat map, right, where your friends are. So you've got 40 friends in Christchurch, 100 in Wellington, and 30 friends in Auckland. But the fact is that you interact on a daily basis with 80% of your friends in Auckland and only interact with 10 people of your friends in Wellington, you'd actually be more likely statistically to take a job in Auckland because your social support network is much greater. So this is the kind of stuff that you can't get when you put a resume in a drawer. This is the kind of knowledge that social networking is starting to enable us to happen. So we have another tool called a change predictor where we can look at your average tenure in a career and the rate in which you are updating your profile, certain elements of your profile, because it's an indicator of someone getting ready to change jobs, right? If I see you on LinkedIn updating all your information, getting your CV ready, it's a high probability that you're thinking about a new career step. So using these real-time social behaviors in the targeting engine, we're able to actually drill into real-time social behaviors as part of our recruitment process. And we're only scratching the surface of that stuff right now, but it's a very, very interesting kind of way that I think this, as people in the Gen Y come out and they become less concerned about privacy and they're more concerned about openness and sharing, I think those things are going to become much stronger attributes for recruitment.
Right. Hey, look, just the last 10 minutes. One question is, what was the first big win? When did you know you had a breakthrough with this find.ly? Just for those of you out there, there's no com. It's find.ly. When was the breakthrough, client or?
Yeah, the breakthrough was probably when we got the technology to work, to be honest. You try and tell someone you want to build a resume searching technology on the social web that doesn't store any data, and you kind of go, well, where do I start then? So getting the technology right and applying our kind of learnings from the government stuff into that was one of the big things. But the breakthrough really came in some previous work we'd done. We had accumulated a lot of Fortune 500 clients, and having those clients as a beta base for Findly, was one of the big things. I think we just came back last week from a show called ERE in San Diego, which is the Electronic Recruiting Exchange, and we had a trade fair, and we had a booth there, and we actually had as a prize giveaway an invention from New Zealand. It was very, very cool. So are you familiar with the Yike bike in Christchurch?
I was going to say, I bet you it was the Yike bike. Of course.
Right.
Wonderful.
So Grant Ryan built us a custom Findlay Yike bike. It had yellow rims finely embedded into the carbon fiber. It was very, very cool. We ran a promotion to give away this Yike bike, and we had, the Findlay logo is this big fluffy buzzy bee with a buzzy bee riding the Yike bike. We had, at that show, we were beside Career Builder, TMP, Zoom Info, and a bunch of big brands. We had probably 30 or 40 people in our booth the whole show. And, this space, this idea that I can search and be connected to people and follow people's careers is something that has really taken a hold here in the US. So I've been invited down to come and speak at a show in Australia at the end of May on this subject. But the notion that I can now connect to someone who is highly interested in my brand, and I can connect them with them in a way that causes them just one click, not a 40-minute form they've got to fill out, a very lightweight connection that is enduring and keeps them interested and enamored with my brand, is something that we think is really going to revolutionize that $100 billion industry. And when you look at the brands that we have and the clients that we're getting now, they are the industry. And once they start, connecting with people in such a way, then their recruiters and the recruitment capability around that is going to become very efficient, and recruiters are going to be able to do their job a lot better.
Okay, just exactly what I want to move on to. Just before we move on, for listeners, the Yike bike is spelled Y-I-K-E, and it's the future of cycling. It's an electronic. You plug it in at home, and it goes for hours. Is that right? Jason, I've basically got the...
Yeah, it's just a very cool New Zealand invention. You sit on it like a frontwards-facing penny farthing. It does about 10 miles on a charge. You wouldn't want to drive it after a few beers, I can tell you that. I tried driving it around the ERE trade show between all the people. I just about took out some of the competition. But it's a great New Zealand thing.
Great. Hey, look, now, is this find.ly, Findly, is you after blowing recruiters out of the water? What part of the industry do you think is going to be threatened in the recruitment industry and HR by your new software?
Yeah, it's a good question, because if you go to Findly right now, what you'll see is the corporate offering, what we sell corporations. So right now we sell Findly to big companies, and big companies buy it so they can follow the careers of candidates who like their brand. It's a very simple notion. So it's not really affecting anybody. These big companies are already attracting candidates. They already have internal sourcing capability. They're just now connecting with these candidates in a new way that means they're always up to date and have a permanent connection to them. Findly is, however, if you look at the Findly website, you'll see it's a very consumer-oriented brand, right? Because eventually, in about 3 months, we'll be launching the Findly Consumer Play, which means the play for job seekers. And that play really is about the benefit of the job seeker. It's really saying to a job seeker, here is a way to enrich the social profile you already have and ensure that you keep your best foot forward in the market to be found for jobs. And that, as a source for recruiters to find and engage talent, is going to be second to none, because recruiters who are needing to source people are now going to have always up-to-date permanent access of a professional nature, and it's going to be the best representation of someone and their brand. So I think, by simply aiming at helping the job seeker keep their absolute best foot forward in the market, you're providing another resource into the recruitment market.
So would I be rude in saying people like Seek and Monster should be worried?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think those things will always stay around. I mean, they are declining by their own attrition rate, without any help from people like us. I think they will evolve. You're seeing them over here evolve and trying to go social. I mean, I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but pretty much every Fortune 500 CEO in America is thinking about how to go social, right? From insurance companies to advertising to everybody. So I don't know. Monster up here has been buying up, Yahoo Hot Jobs out here in the valley. They will try and go social, but at the end of the day, their model isn't social. Their model is advertising, right? So pay me to get something in front of people. Social is the opposite, right? Social media is about using your network to share that. So they're all now running after social media as another way to distribute their advert. What finally is, it's about the social web. And there's a difference between the social media and social web. The social web is allowing people to use their media to benefit themselves as opposed to what advertisers are trying to do, which is to use your network to benefit them. And I think the market's going to cotton on to that soon, right? Because the content that you have is yours, finally allows you to enrich it. And so I'm not sure what those guys are going to do. I think there'll always be a place like, it's the same as saying, why is there still adverts in the newspaper, right? You would think that job boards would have killed newspaper advertising for recruitment, but it hasn't. It's just different. And I think there's a great analogy that I used to use when we were talking to people in the early days about this, because there was a big fear about, social and recruiting. And it's, look, when, remember the days when QuickBooks and Peachtree accounting systems came out? The do-it-yourself, right? Half the accountants, right, ran around and said, we're all out of business. This thing's going to put us out of business. Other half the accountants ran around and said, great, we're no longer going to have to do stupid journal entries and we can add value to our customers. And I think all of these things, they give opportunity for recruiters to add value to their customers. If we can help a recruiter more quickly engage a far better candidate, they can spend more time adding value to that customer. So I don't see, anything going away soon.
That's a wonderful spot to end it on, actually. Just one wonderful stuff, really interesting, thought-provoking. One last point. What's your favorite gadget at the moment? Gadget or app? My favorite gadget would have to be anything you throw at us to say, go and have a look at something.
I don't know if it works in NZ, but there's a new app out called Color, COLOR, on the iPhone, and it's basically
COLOR would be. Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Color, it got launched today here in Palo Alto. It had $41 million thrown behind it, and it's essentially a challenge to Facebook. So I don't know, do you use Facebook Places in New Zealand right now? Can you check into places on Facebook? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, the notion of Facebook is that I can connect with my friends, and I can see my friends, and I go into, the chiller in Parnell, and I check in there, and I can see people who've checked in there. It's kind of, it's cool. It's kind of, I've got to do it, and then I do it, and I get no reward, right? So what Color has said is privacy no longer matters. What I want is I just want to know where people are when I walk in there and what they're interested in. I want to be instantly connected to people in the zone. So they're using a thing called near-field communication, so 150 feet around your device. So if you've got an Android phone or an iPad or an iPhone, you download the Color app, and you basically take photos. So it's basically a photo-sharing technology that instantly builds what they call instantaneous social networks. So in other words, I've got my photo on there, and I'm sitting in my office, and it's a lovely sunset out the window. I might take a picture of the sunset. Instantly, people who've got the Color app within 150 feet can see me. So you can see where this product's going to go. It's no longer Foursquare, where I've got to check in and become the mayor of a village or whatever I become and get no reward for it, or a Facebook check-in where I've got to know people, and the only people that see my check-ins are the friends I already know. What Color is all about is, look, how do we build dynamic instant social networks? And why do I have to be friends with people? Why can't I just see things that are interesting to me based on what I already have by other people who are around me? So you can see where this app is going to go into the bar and the dating scene. It's going to go there very big, very quickly. And it's got some really cool algorithms about the photos you take, and and working out what kind of photos and what kind of people you'd be interested by the photos they take, and it's using some kind of photo matching technology from a company called Photo Bucket, which was a Yahoo investment some time ago. So that's kind of the coolest, interesting thing, because it takes down this notion that I don't need to be friends with people. What I really want is I want to walk into a room and I want to see the people that have the same interests as me, right? So it's a really interesting notion. It might be a bit far out there for most people, but I've tried it. It's pretty cool. I walk into a coffee shop and you see people in the coffee shop, and it tries to match the photos, the more photos you take, obviously, with the interests that you have, and it's a pretty cool tool.
Wow, that's crazy. Look, you're in the hub of all this, where IT, big money, and brute creativity meet. And look, we've learnt a lot today from you. Thank you so much for your time today, Jason. Hopefully you come to New Zealand one day and our listeners can meet you in person. We'd love to have you back here and hear more of what you're doing. And have a great 2011 and all the best, sir.
Yeah, well, thanks for your time and thanks for listening.
Thank you. That was Jason Kerr from Find.ly. That's Findly, Find.ly. Go and have a look. It's the future of where recruiting and social networking are going to meet, so you'd better get there quickly. And that's it for Frog Live Radio today. Please tune in next month. We have Paul Coles from the Results Group, strategy, that kind of thing. Interesting chat as well. It's been a great show. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.